Howdy everybody, I want to spend a few minutes talking about Facebook ads, lookalike audiences. There's a lot of confusion around this stuff, so I thought it would be a good video to make, and I hope it'll be pretty helpful. I've been doing a lot of Facebook ads myself recently, and our company manages a lot of Facebook campaigns, and there's a lot of quirks and weird things when it comes to Facebook advertising. A lot of things have changed with Facebook advertising, a lot of best practices. So I'm going to duplicate an ad set and create a lookalike audience, and I'll explain to you what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so what we're looking at over here is the campaigns tab in our company's or my Facebook ads manager. So there's two campaigns here we see in the view. They're both inactive, as you could tell. And the basic hierarchy is you have campaigns, ad sets, and then ads. So it's somewhat similar to Google Ads, but there's a lot of differences as well with like what settings are configured at the ad set level or the campaign level, and ads itself. So a couple best practices to start. So first of all, you guys should be testing dynamic creative. Dynamic content allows you to upload multiple assets for each individual, feature of an ad or different pieces of content for an ad. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And Facebook's AI, Facebook's algorithms will optimize and find the best positions for these ads. But the first thing or the best combinations of the different elements. The first thing I want to show you though the first thing I wanted to explain really is the importance of weighting. When you're using some of these automated features, which work better than you being able to manually manage your campaigns, they will work better over time. Like we've seen this with clients over and over and over again. You got to wait. You got to give Facebook enough time to figure out what works best. Like let Facebook do that work for you. And it could take a week, 2 weeks of just letting things run, not messing around with your budgets, with your daily budgets too much, not making changes to ads too much, and you'll see good results. So dynamic content, if we just click into one of these ads, we click edit, you'll see that there's multiple different elements of each. There's multiple options that I'm giving Facebook for every ad element. So there's images, right? So you're able to upload up to 10 different images individually, and Facebook will rotate them, and they'll mix and match them with different headlines and text. One tip over here, so there's this toggle that says allow additional optimizations. If you have images with text on them, like I do over here, then don't select this toggle. Because what this toggle basically does, it creates slideshows with text overlays over your images. So what's going to happen if you have an image with text, then there'll be an image with text over it in this, and it just looks bad. So I leave that off if I have images with text. And I found that images with some text work well, but of course you can't have more than 20% of your image being text. Otherwise Facebook will disapprove your ad. Another thing, you should get in the habit of uploading 1080 by 1080 images, the 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels. That's the ad format that will get the most amount of placements now. Like it used to be, Instagram and Facebook Messenger and the display network through Facebook were like very minor portions of the advertising inventory that you would get through a Facebook campaign, and that's changed. So like I'm getting a lot of good results from Instagram, and so are our clients. Instagram placements, if you don't know, they take place through the Facebook advertising ecosystem. Like there's not a separate Instagram advertising backend. It's all done through Facebook. Facebook owns Instagram. One of the things I just like to do, it's a really cool tool, is if you click this little icon under ad preview and I click send notification to Facebook, I'll get a notification on my mobile phone to see how an ad looks on my mobile device, like inside my feed. So I have my phone here. If I click send notification, it says preview notification cannot be sent, but that's just a glitch. It usually is sent. Let me find it here. I'm going to open up Facebook and I go to my notifications tab. Sure enough, it says your ad is ready to preview. So I click on that notification and it shows me a preview of what the ad will look like. Now, this image you're seeing here is actually the ad being somewhat cut off, but that's not how it actually ends up showing up in the Facebook newsfeed. It's like a weird glitch in this ad preview and diagnostics tool. You could preview what it looks like on a desktop newsfeed, and again, you could send that notification to Facebook whatever it is you want to do. One more thing is if you scroll down, you'll see that there's multiple options for text. This is the main body of the text. So let's go back to desktop newsfeed, gives me a largest preview. So I put in a few different versions and I can add 2 more. Add in your website URL, display link. You can't test those, but you could test 5 different headlines. You could test 5 different news feed link descriptions, and you could test different call to action buttons. And again, there's no way to control or tell Facebook which combinations or which text to prefer. With dynamic content, you're leaving that in Facebook's hands. This is similar to what Google Ads has been releasing and pushing very heavily with multiple headlines and multiple descriptions in their dynamic responsive search ads. It's a very, very good tool to use. So if you have Facebook campaigns running and you don't have dynamic content set up, I strongly suggest you test some dynamic content. It's very powerful and it works really well. You have to give it some time. So you got to give it a $50 a day budget, a $100 a day budget, and you got to let it run for a week or 2. If you don't have that money, I don't know what to tell you. Like I have this conversation with clients all the time where it's like, listen, like this is how you're going to get the best results. So you have to sort of invest if you want to be a long-term player in this game. Like gone are the days where you're going to launch a Facebook campaign and you're going to start getting registrations or clicks or conversions for under $1. Like you can get there, like you can get to under $1, but it's not going to happen on day 1 or on day 4. You have to really give it time, and you have to let Facebook's AI do its magic, work in your favor. Now, many of you might be thinking, well, how can I see which combinations are performing the best? So you could see that. So let's say I'm going to change this to the last 30 days, let's say, some more data, and go into this campaign. And I could, once I select that, then I'm seeing the ad sets and the ads for that campaign. I go to the ads tab and I click breakdown, and you do by dynamic creative asset. And then I can see the breakdown of the combination of everything, image, video, and slideshow, etc., text. It's like really, really cool. Like this is much more information than Google gives you on the dynamic content. So I click on combination. You'll see that in each ad set, it'll show me the top performing version. But I could also twirl down this bottom overview tab, and it'll show me additional results as well. Now, I've been running a bunch of different ads and have been editing them over the last couple of weeks just because I found a lot of mistakes and I've been rushing. So I would see more results once I twirled this down if I had the other ads. If the other ads in the account were still active, but a lot of the other ads that had gotten results are now deleted, those images, so you're not actually seeing the results from there. And one more thing here. If you go, you could see, let's say I want to see which text is performing the best. So I'll filter the breakdown by text. Maybe I'll sort the results. I'll sort the column by results, and I'll see like which text is performing the best. It's getting you the most results. And maybe I'll see like what's the cost per result. And if you hover over, you'll see the full text. So definitely, once you're running dynamic content, use this breakdown tool, dynamic content, to get a sense of what's working. If I click call to action, like what call to action buttons, like, okay, sign up is working really well, get show times is working really well. So you start getting a sense of what works, right? And then the next round of modifications, you try to add more content along the lines of what's been working. And it's like a really good strategy. It's really simple. It's not rocket science, and it just works. So I'll clear all my breakdowns. And now what I want to do is I want to create a new ad set within one of these campaigns. There's 2 campaigns here. One of them is lead forms ads. I'll cover lead forms in a separate video. And one of them is a campaign that's optimizing for conversions, optimizing for registrations. And of course, I have my registration tag, my Facebook pixel firing properly. I'll cover that in a different video. That's not the point I want to cover here. I have 1,600 conversions from this campaign here with around $13,500 of spend. And we can take a look at the basic high-level configurations of this campaign by clicking Edit. And I'll see my campaign name, budget optimization. And this is another thing I want to show you is that you could set a daily budget at the campaign level. That's what you should do. And you'll have better performance if you use campaign budget optimization. So that's another setting that you set up, which basically overrides the individual ad set level budget caps, and it sort of spreads the budget effectively, or as effectively as it thinks it could, across whatever ad sets are in that campaign. So that's an important thing to use. So campaign budget optimization is a really, really important tool. Very, very worthwhile using. Okay. So here in this campaign here, I have these two ad sets. So if I twirl them up, it's a little bit neater. I have two ad sets, and this little 4 ad icon represents an ad set. And I twirl them down and I see I have one ad running, one dynamic content ad running, and that's sort of what I want to do right now. But the targeting, the audiences that you set up, like who you want to show ads to, is set up at the ad set level. Both of these ad sets are targeting lookalike audiences. Lookalike audiences is at its simplest form is a population based off a source audience. So your source audience is data that you collect and that you feed into Facebook. So that could be people that trigger based on a Facebook pixel. So it might be visitors of a certain page of your site. So that you could say like all the visitors of a certain page of my site or all the visitors of my entire site are my source audience. And I want you to find people that are like that. Facebook's very vague with like what parameters and dimensions they use to determine who's like your source audience. Like, is it because they have the same email address, or is it because they have the same preferences, or is it because they like the same movies, or they've done the same things? Like, it's really hard to know. But part of like moving towards automation is like being okay with not knowing a lot of things. So you might not know exactly what Google uses to determine that, but all you really need to know is that lookalike audiences in many cases work really, really well. You could also combine lookalike audiences with other targeting. So in this ad set, lookalike audiences plus an interest, I have a lookalike audience, and this lookalike audience was, the source audience was 1,300 people who registered for a live webinar. Like that was my source audience, and I wanted Facebook to find all the people that are like that, whatever that means. And I'm going to show you, there's a few different configurations within that are important to understand, and I'll show you that in a minute. But you could also combine it with other targeting. So if I go down here, up here in my audience section, we'll describe this in a little bit more detail in a second. This is my overall audience. This is my lookalike audience. And I have some age restrictions, but I also have, you have, in order to show the ad, the person has to be part of the lookalike audience, and they have to have an interest, be in the interest category of online advertising. So you could further narrow down your lookalike audiences by an interest category, and that's a cool thing to test. So like the basic idea of this test between these two ad sets is, will I get better performance? And in this case, better performance means more website registrations for a lower cost per registration by just targeting lookalike audiences, or will it be better if I target lookalike audiences plus a specific interest related to what I'm trying to sell, which is online marketing education? And that test has been running, and the results are inconclusive as of yet. But I want to try a new lookalike audience. I want to try an audience of people who submitted a form on my website, on our website. So, well, I think that would be a good lookalike audience, because people who have submitted a form who are interested in digital advertising services, high quality people. They've submitted a form. They've expressed interest. All the emails that we have are 100% legitimate. So I think it's like a really good base source audience to start from. You need at least, you should really have a couple hundred people in your source audience. That's an important thing to keep in mind. If you don't have 100 or 200 or 300 emails, like I would say 500 emails is really where you want to be if you want to create lookalike audiences off an email list. But if you don't have those 500 emails, you could use other things. Like you could use a pixel, a Facebook pixel on your site to create audiences. And if you do not have the Facebook pixel on your site, stop watching this and go put the Facebook pixel on your site. You don't need to do anything with it. Just at least let it collect data. So even if you're getting 5 or 10 visitors a day, get that pixel on your site. And if you guys want a more in-depth video about Facebook Pixel and Facebook Pixel configurations, let me know in the comments. And if there's enough people that are interested, I'll create a Facebook Pixel video. So here I have an export of, I don't know, it's like around 2,000 people who recently submitted a form on our website. 1,929. And I also removed any lead from, and we use HubSpot as our CRM. Here's HubSpot. I removed any lead we marked as junk. So junk leads were, like bloggers asking for guest posting, or people who had really, really, really bad websites that we couldn't help, or really strange. You get some of these strange form submissions. You guys know what junk leads are. So I removed the junk leads. So this, I think there was maybe 25 or 2,600 form submissions from this date range. and cleaned it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to eventually be able to, I'm going to delete first name and last name. We're just going to need email for that CSV export, but let's just go in and do this. So to copy, so we covered optimization and delivery. This is sort of its own video as well. I don't want to, you know, mix and match too many different topics here. Like what I really want to talk about is lookalike audiences, but I did want to throw in campaign budget optimization. That I think is important. Test campaign budget optimization. So you're setting a campaign, you're setting a budget at the campaign level on Facebook. You're selecting campaign budget optimization. It's always best to optimize for conversions. You don't necessarily need to set a bid cap per conversion, but sometimes it's a good thing to do. And also test dynamic creative. Okay, so that's like sort of the fundamentals, setting the stage for what we're going to do here. So I'm going to go into, I'm going to make sure I'm in the right campaign. Okay, so I'm going to take, let's say, this lookalike audience, this ad set, and I'm just going to simply duplicate it. Just a quick tip, if it's better to make sure your dynamic creative assets are all in place in one of these ad sets. So let's say I go into this ad set. If this is the one I'm going to duplicate, and let's say I wanted to write like, you know, 2 more text options, or I wanted to edit some of this text, do that first. So then when you duplicate it, it's all there. It's a real pain in the butt to have to toggle. Like Facebook does not make it easy to toggle back and forth between dynamic ads and ad sets and copy and pasting. It's really, really a hassle. So just make sure you have that in place. And I don't like this. I need to do a lot of work with these ads, but I'm going to duplicate it anyway because that's just what I'm doing, moving along. So inside this campaign, well, I could actually go into the edit screen from here, into my conversions campaign, and I'm going to take this lookalike audience from Zoom webinar, make sure it's selected, and I'm going to click this little duplicate icon. So I want to duplicate it in my original campaign. I don't want it to be a test. And let's see here. I'm sorry. I want to duplicate it in this existing campaign. So conversion rate with registration. I can make multiple copies of each ad set. So say I'm going to make, you know, do the same test, like this new lookalike audience plus an interest targeting. I could do 2 copies, but I could just make that copy later. So I'm going to click duplicate, and simple enough, it's going to duplicate my ad set. But it looks like I'm getting a warning because this is what Facebook does all the time. Maybe missing page ID, creative details, or invalid fields exists. Doesn't make sense. Maybe I have to review and publish a change. I don't remember updating creative unless I did, which is annoying because then that's going to put all the ads back into review, and that's what my post is going to be about tonight, how frustrating the Facebook review process is. I spoke to our Facebook rep today on the phone, and she's helping to expedite our agency review process, but like it sometimes takes 24 hours. You make a little change in an ad and you have a whole day where that ad's not running, so that's no good. So let's try this again. So we're gonna go into the lookalike audiences from Zoom. I'm sorry, you know, I have like these weird tics. I like to go into my edit screen from the campaign level. Like I think we all do. Like if you're sitting in front of a computer long enough, like you sort of develop your own weird behavioral patterns that don't necessarily make sense. It's just like an OCD comfort thing, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. So we're gonna edit this campaign. We're gonna go into this asset that I want to duplicate. Let's try to clone this again, and we're gonna clone it here with 1 copy. How we go? All right, good. And it's called copy. So I'm going to type it lookalike audiences from website. How about this? Lookalike audiences, adventure, media leads. Good. So now we're gonna have to go into edit, and this is sort of the same exact screen you're gonna see if you're creating a new campaign from scratch. So I'm just gonna like remove these lookalike audiences over here for now. We're gonna start from scratch and go through it all together. So okay, so here's my audience tab, and I'm setting up a new lookalike audiences. I'm gonna set up a new lookalike audience, and actually a few audiences, and I'll explain to you how we're gonna do that in a second. So first we create new. And we're going to create a lookalike audience. So we need a source, right? We need a source for the lookalike. Now, Facebook is going to automatically exclude, well, Facebook claims that they're going to automatically exclude from your ad targeting anybody on the source audience, but I don't totally trust them. So as a preventative measure, I also add the specific source audience as an exclusion. I do that manually, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay. So let's talk about creating a new source. So we're going to create a new source, and I'm going to create a new custom audience. So I'm going to create a customer file, and I'm going to use a file that doesn't include LTV because I don't have lifetime value data for leads. Like maybe eventually I'll create a lookalike audience of current clients, but we're not such a huge agency that we have thousands of active clients, so maybe I won't do that. We'll see. But anyway, we're going to use a file that does not include LTV. When Facebook uploads this file, in the upload process, this information is getting hashed. Where like, so you're uploading an email, name, first name, last name, and what's happening is Facebook's not reading. When Facebook uploads all this information into the system, it's not like email, first name, last name. It's like it's all sort of transferred or transposed into this alphanumeric string, which is an ID, and Facebook looks to see if they have an ID in their database to match it with. Okay, anyway, that's not so important. So I'm going to do, I have email, first name, and last name in my export here. So I have email, first name, and last name. I'm just going to make sure I have this saved as a CSV on my desktop. Go back to Facebook, and I'm going to upload my file. So directly from customers, like this is sort of like privacy stuff, upload file. And I'm going to upload my CSV. Nope, that's not it. Right here. And we're going to name the audience. So this is Adventure Leads HubSpot. Or like, maybe form submissions will make it more clear for me to remember later on. And that's it. Click next. See what happens here is we're going to map our field. So email, first name, and this is last name. Just map the fields like you typically do with all these different types of uploads. And that's probably pretty good. Like if I go back to HubSpot, I could probably add a few more identifiers, but like first name, last name, email, you're probably golden. So now it's going to be this. Like that's what I was telling you about, this hashed upload. So 100% of my 1928 rows have been uploaded. Beautiful. Now we're going to create a lookalike audience. That's the next step. So we have our source audience. Like this is the 1930 people that Facebook's going to look at to create people who look, or to create audiences that look or are similar to this audience. So let's create a lookalike audience. A couple things here. You select your audience source. So I have my Adventure Form Submissions HubSpot. That's my source. Select audience location. So this is where you want to pool or pull these lookalike audience members from. So this gets a little bit confusing when you think about choosing locations here versus choosing locations in your actual ad targeting. So the way this basically works is whatever countries or locations you select here, Facebook's going to only add members of that audience if those people, if Facebook thinks those people live in those locations. Now, say I select just for an easy example, let's say I select the United States here. And then I select, when I actually go to create my ad set, I select United States and Mexico. So Facebook, you could definitely show ads to people in Mexico if you do that, but those are only people who are actually in Mexico that Facebook thinks lives in the United States. You understand? Now, say the flip side. Say in this section right here, in this select audience location, I select United States, Mexico, and Australia, right? So what you're telling Facebook is that you could create my lookalike audience from people who live in the United States, Facebook, and the United States, Mexico, and Australia. But say when I go to create my ad set settings, I only select target the United States. That means only ads will show in the United States. Even though I have members of the lookalike audience from Australia, and I have members in my lookalike audience from Mexico, because I am targeting this ad set to only show ads in the US, that's the setting that would override the where the members are coming from. Or it's not even really an override. It's like, okay, here's your pool, right? So it's like sort of three things. I have my source audience. I then have my lookalike audience, which could be, let's say, 5 million people from the US, Mexico, and Australia. But then I have my ad targeting. Like, I only want you to show ads to people in the US. So, okay, like there's a lot of members from my audience targeting lookalike audience that are just not going to get ads shown to them. So that's it's maybe a little bit confusing, but that's sort of the hierarchy of how this works. So for me, the select of the audience location is we're going to do United States and the United Kingdom, because I know that I'm going to show ads there. We're going to do Australia, if I could spell it right. And, let's start with that. And we could go back and edit this later. Now we have select audience size. So this is where things get confusing and there's a lot of ambiguity and all that sort of good stuff. So you have the number of lookalike audiences that you could select, and then you have this strange percentage bar. So let me explain to you what this is. And we've had a lot of back and forths with our Facebook reps about this. And the first couple times they told us what this was. They were just off. But anyway, if you have a lookalike audience set at 1%, what you're telling Facebook is that choose the 1% of the total potential population of the locations that I chose that are most similar to my source audience, okay? So it's not the 1% of my source audience that's most similar to my lookalike audience or whatever it is. It's like, let's say the United States is 200 million people, okay? So there's 200 million active users in the United States on Facebook, right? Total. If I have a 1% lookalike audience, it's telling Facebook, choose the 2 million people. 1% of 200 million is 2 million. Choose the 2 million people that are most like my source audience of 1,900 form submissions. If I say I want a 4% lookalike audience, it's telling Facebook, choose the 4 million people. So you're going to have 4 million people on your lookalike audience list without any additional age restrictions or location restrictions that you'll set up at the ad set level. This is just the creating audience sizes. Okay, so it's a percentage of the total population. And these numbers up here, you could use them as ballparks, but they're not totally accurate. The next cool thing you could do is you could create multiple lookalike audiences at the same time. So let's say I'm not sure, do I want to do 3%, 1%? If you're going to start off at all, I would strongly suggest start off at 1% of your population. But I'm going to create 5 audiences all at the same time. So I'll have a 1% audience, a 2% audience, a 3% audience, a 4% audience, and a 5% audience. Okay? So up to 1%, 1 to 2%, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. So the way this is working is a little different than if you had just selected one audience of 5%. So if I just select one audience of 5%, that one audience, according to Facebook, is going to have 13.7 million people on it. Okay? But if I select 5 audiences and I can move my slider around, so I have the 1, I have a 2, I have a 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, each audience will have a different 2.7 million people on it, right? Because in each percentile, it's the same volume of people in each percentile, in each range of percentages. So it's pretty cool. Once you sort of wrap your head around this concept of I'm taking what you're telling Google is give me in this range over here from 0 to 1%, it's giving me the 1% of Facebook users that are in the UK, United States, and Australia that are most like my 1,900 people that I've uploaded, right? And pretty simple. And I'm just saying that do that 5 times at different ranges of likeness. So now that's it. We're done. So it's a little tricky. And but I think it's sort of pretty. Eventually, it'll just click and it'll just make sense. So we're going to create the audience, and that's it. We have our audience created. Now we can go ahead, continue building our ad set the way we would build any other. So I see that audience over here. I have the customer list, my source audience. I have my lookalike 4 to 5, my lookalike 1 to 2. It gives you the country codes, 3 to 4, 2 to 3, and 1%. And here's where I was telling you where I manually exclude my source list. So I'm actually going to manually exclude my source list, and I'm going to manually exclude my other upload list, which was my webinar attendees who I don't want to see my ads anymore. What I really want to also do is exclude other audiences that have registered converters, and that's something that I'll set up after I do this video. A lot of people get nervous about this audience definition window on the right-hand side over here where Facebook will tell you that your audience is too specific, but how does that make sense? They told me I'm basically targeting 5 segments of 2.7 million people each, So how could you get me to less than 1,000 people? Well, you might say, oh, you got to less than 1,000 people because of your location targeting and your age targeting, but that doesn't make sense. Like, there's no way that you went from 14 million people down to less than 1,000 because my age targeting is 17 to 40. That doesn't make any sense at all. Or that my language is just English, because everyone in the UK and the US and Australia speak English, right? So like, I tend to just ignore this in most cases, honestly. I think it's just a totally inaccurate gauge. But anyway, so let's go back to our locations. So what we're seeing here in this window is locations per audience. So Australia, UK, United States. You could edit your locations, and you're only going to have those 3. Because remember what we said, where the first time we chose locations when setting up our audience, we were choosing the locations we want to pull audience members from. Now we're choosing locations where we want to show ads to. 2 separate things. So I have used Australia, United States. So let's say I were to remove the UK and Australia. So I could remove those locations, and then I can go back and just, select United States. And I'll have that selected, but I'm going to add back in Australia. And I want to add in the United Kingdom because that's where I want to target my ads. I want my ads to be able to show in any of those 3 countries, let's say. Okay. I could also exclude locations. You could do all, this is not a video about location targeting. Ages, 17 to 40. I'm going to keep it at 17 to 40. English, UK, and I'm not going to leave out any other sort of targeting. Automatic placements, that's a recommended option. Like, I'm just going through some of these typical ad set. Like, we always do automatic placements unless like a client says they don't want their ad showing in a certain place. And we're going to optimize for conversions. Conversion windows should always be 1-day click. And that's basically it. Like, that was a lookalike audience from scratch from an email list. And like, look, all of a sudden, I went up to see how the gauge changed over here. Now it's potential reach unavailable because everything's the same. Like, I didn't change anything. So I told you this gauge is just not accurate. So we're going to click publish. Make sure I named it right. Lookalike audience, adventure media leads. And that's pretty good. Like, the dynamic content ad is going to be the same. And it's going to be in review, of course. And let's just wait till it publishes and we'll see how it goes. Close this off here and go over to our campaigns, back into the conversions. We have 3 ad sets. And if I go into this leads, we'll probably see 1 ad is in review, which is the case. So that's that. That's lookalike audiences. Just a quick recap. Lookalike audiences are awesome. You have the source audience. Facebook claims they automatically exclude the source audience from targeting, but be that as it may, it's still a really good feature. And I'll manually exclude those audiences, the exact audiences anyway. So lookalike audiences are really good. I would typically recommend creating 3, 4, 5 lookalike audiences at the different percentile ranges, because then you could see how broad Facebook could go, where you could still get good results in Facebook's own mind of likeness. So remember, when you choose a 2% range from 0 to 2, if you choose one lookalike audience that's 0 to 2%, you're saying take 2% of the total Facebook user population of the countries I chose. So if that's 300 million, then I'm telling Facebook take 6 million people that are most similar to whatever amount of people I have in my source audience, right? That's what you're saying. You're not telling Facebook where to target the ads. That comes at the ad set settings. But I recommend doing 5, or I guess what we've seen work the best is 5 individual audiences, each separated by 1%, but always have the 1%, because the 1% is going to be the most specific to your audience. And if you're going to only do one lookalike audience, just do 1%. That's usually more than enough, unless you're targeting a very narrow location, and then you might need, you might need to slide that lever up to 4, 5, 6, 7%. So lookalike audiences are really cool. You upload that CSV file right into Facebook as a custom audience. Then you select that custom audience as your source audience. That source audience is what's used to create your lookalike audiences. You choose the locations they should come from and the percentage and the breadth that you're giving Facebook to pull from the total population. And then you go ahead and create the rest of your settings in the ad settings tab as you would any other normal campaign. You can combine it with age restrictions and gender and interest categories and all that, in market segments and all that good stuff. Campaign budget optimization is a big plus. Test it, and dynamic content, test it. And I hope this video was helpful, at least I think hopefully understanding the concept of lookalike audiences, the concept of source audiences, and also like what that entire slider of percentages really means in the context of Facebook. So enjoy. Let me know how your dynamic content campaigns go, especially if you're using lookalike audiences. But more importantly, wait, give it time. When you first launch a Facebook campaign that is targeting lookalike audiences, but more importantly is using campaign budget optimization with dynamic creative, you got to give it time. You got to give it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Just let it run. Let Facebook figure all this stuff out. So that's it for now. There's a lot of other videos here that I think would be relevant, like a lot of other concepts, even like peripheral concepts to what we covered, like, like understanding the pixel, custom conversion actions, different data analysis within Facebook. But for now, I think that was a good overview of lookalike audiences. I hope that was helpful. And of course, I'll be sharing the results of what happens here. See you guys in the next lecture.